The Ambitious Africans podcast is building more than conversations. We're building a thinking community. If you're navigating a challenge, transition, or decision in your personal or professional journey, we invite you to share it with us using the link below. Selected reflections will be discussed in future episodes where other listeners will offer their perspective, insights, and lived experiences. This is not about having it all figured out. It's about learning out loud, hearing different viewpoints, and lightening the mental load by thinking together. Your submission can be anonymous, and the goal is perspective, not judgment. Go into the show notes below, fill out the form, and share your challenges, ideas, thoughts, and decision points with us, and we'll be more than happy to give you some directions.
I was thinking about how that advice in general can help my side of or my type of family. My dad is a Muslim, my mom is a Christian. So down the line there were a bit of conflicts, even around properties and all that. Like now we are on better talking terms, we are cordial. So the next course of action to think about would be properties and legacy. I am thinking about it in two ways. I don't think that someone will purposefully say that, oh, my father has all these things, or my mom has all these things, or my family has all these things, but then I also want a name for myself. Unless there's like unhealthy competition or unhealthy comparisons and all sorts of things tied to it. With most of like friends and family and stories I've heard, you see this competition, this need to compare siblings, this need to even compare the family, the father and mother struggles to the children. And it's like, I struggle to get ABC, so you too struggle to get your own, and it kind of detaches you from their property because in your mind you're like, this is for them. It's never a you thing. It's never like a whole, it's for all of us, so let's take care of it kind of thing. Which I think that for me is the advice I'm picking, even in my family, even with my nuclear family, when I finally have my children and everything, making sure that they feel included in properties, in decision making, in all these things, so that they have a maintenance culture. They have a culture to keep growing whatever it is that is for the family. Because if it's something I'm thinking to leave behind for all of us, then why not include them? Why not ask them? Why not teach them and guide them towards the property and the wealth accumulation, so that it's not like, oh, my father strived for this, and so I need to also strive for my own. Other side of the coin is it's the great part where you see a daughter or a son or siblings coming together and forcing to remodel, rebuild, renovate their father's properties or their mother's house. If you are included, if you are made to understand that this is yours too, in even the smallest way, it encourages you to want to maintain and want to keep it and want to develop it. But when you are more often than not told that it's not yours, and you like, I will die when I die before you can earn anything, you can enjoy anything from this property. Your mind is okay. Look, when am I leaving this house to like start my own, or how quick can I start my own and leave these people be? So thought provoking stuff. Like when I listened to it, I was like, yeah, this is like really thought provoking for me, as to even if I say that, oh, I would do better than what my parents have done. What have they done that I think is wrong? What have they done that I think is right? And how can I build on what is right to make it better? How can I also change the wrong so that my children now gets the best of both worlds? Which is for me the larger conversation. So yeah, thank you.
Dear ambitious African, this is your host, Secho. In this podcast, we will discuss everything about our journeys and experiences towards achieving our goals for life and work as phenomenal change leaders in our varied communities. We will feature other ambitious Africans crushing it through arts, social activism, tech innovations, entrepreneurship, and positive lifestyle and holistic well-being. We are the generation that is redefining Africa as we know it, and as an ambitious African, now is the time to get involved. Give us your feedback and ideas for our next podcast, and let's keep the conversations going. See you inside. Hi, welcome to the Ambitious Africans podcast. This is your host, Secho. I hope you had a great day today. I had a moderate day today. There were just a lot of things happening mentally, but I am really excited to come on here and share this moment and this time with you. So I do not take it for granted that you are spending this time with me as well. I just wanted to formally say thank you so much for the contributions, the sharing the podcast. We are currently at 82 subscribers on our YouTube, which was like I think 75 from last week. So we have 7 new people joining us here on the podcast, and I want to say thank you so much. Thank you to whoever shared it with you, whoever shared it on their statuses that you saw and you decided to come support. Thank you so much for being here. I do not take your time for granted. And yes, if you haven't done that, you can go into the show notes. There's the link to join the YouTube, like to subscribe to YouTube, to follow and subscribe to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever I get a podcast. But officially, if you're one of the newest subscribers or one of the newest followers, is that a word on Spotify? I'm going to use subscribers for everyone now. If you're one of our newest subscribers, welcome to the family, welcome to the thinking community, and I hope you love it here. Now, today is going to be a bit of unpacking and really learning together based on the feedback we had from one of the community members. So that was from a friend. I actually forgot I forgot to ask if I could mention her name, but let's make a make-believe name. Let's say her name is Priscilla. So yes, thank you so much, Priscilla, for sending that voice note. It was so like there's so much to unpack. Like I have like notes here, and there's so much to unpack. And I think in due course we can all unpack together. But top of mind, what are some of the themes I'm hearing also for you to think about is really first and foremost, how do we unpack the a bit further the kind of family systems we grew up in, not in a way to judge, but like Priscilla said, in a way to pick the good, to understand the not so good, and just move forward with lessons. That's one. Number 2 is the concept of competition and comparing children or siblings. It's another topic altogether. I feel like we would need an entire family series to unpack all the different layers of what it means to have grown up with our kind of parents in the kind of systems they grew up in, and how, as intermediaries between their parents and us, there's some things that were passed on that do not work anymore. In this case, comparing and having children compete against themselves. Then there's also the concept of shared ownership versus unhealthy reliance on properties and wealth. So we are talking about generational wealth. So I feel like we are going deeper to have the conversations that most people do not get the chance to have, which I'm very excited about and very appreciative about as well. There are other things I also noted down, but today I really want to just talk about, before moving on to say, oh, we need to do better as parents, or we need to do better for the next generation. I feel like we haven't fully dug deeper enough to see the full scope of how things have become ripple effects in the family systems we grow up in and the different backgrounds and contexts within which we grow up, right? And so this gives us some time to do a bit more unpacking. And so this might take 2 or more episodes. That's totally fine. I genuinely want to hear from you through the course of all this. So feel free to share feel free to share your thoughts, ideas, either voice notes. You can send it through Instagram, you can send it through the form below. I know the form below can take written content. I don't know if you can upload audio. You should be able to upload audio as well. We also have a WhatsApp channel now, so I'm going to also share that in the show notes. All the links, all the places is on the show notes. I feel like there's so many places now. It's giving a lot of options to choose from. So feel free to find what best way for you to send in your thoughts and let's have a conversation. Now, today I want to really talk about the concept of shared ownership versus unhealthy reliance, which is, I would say, when I shared the initial episode talking about generational wealth, it was one of the things that I didn't speak about, and that's really, to be honest, that's not a context I have, which is fine because then it's also bringing some things I might not be aware of. There is indeed this idea of parents having this, oh, don't let them know, or don't let them have this over reliance on the things I have worked so hard to create. Otherwise, they would be lazy. They will not push themselves, and that narrative. And I think that's a sad narrative to push. It's very very sad because what we're essentially doing it, when we have parents say these things to us, or as we say it to our children, is that we are building walls as to what really generational wealth would look like, and which is which is why the whole concept of generational wealth being a hot topic these days is mainly because people from not so great backgrounds looking to begin the process of building generational wealth, and not necessarily looking to begin from their parents' generation, or to look like do a retrospective audit of what's already existing and then carry it forward and grow it forward, because there's this wall where it says you, beyond this wall is all you need to go figure it out. You need to go figure it out. And I'm saying that is so dangerous because inadvertently, when we get to the point where it's our time to speak to nieces, nephews, children, and we're building these walls in their minds unintentionally. That's one thing I have learned by interacting with my parents, and I guess some parents of the same generation. It's like some of these things are very well intentioned, but because the intention doesn't match up with the outcome, there is this blockade where it just births into something totally undesired. And in this case, this is what we see, where because we want to build full resilient children, we're taking away from them their responsibility, their version of ownership, and their willingness, or even the open platform to have a conversation about truly building wealth. And I really do enjoy the fact that all of us learn these things. Okay, let me not say enjoy. Let me not say enjoy, because it's mixed. I personally, I'm coming to the point in my life where I'm like, I don't always want to do things for the next generation. I don't always want to do things for the next generation. I want to change things from here and now if I can. Like, I have, by God's grace and God's blessings, I have both my parents still around, healthy. Let's have these conversations. Let's involve them. Let's carry them along. Let's not just go online and be saying we are building generational wealth, but let's have a healthy conversation. Let's try and mend the relationships we currently have with our parents. Let's have these nuanced conversations, hear their hearts, befriend them, get to know them, and try to fix from today, and not necessarily always put it away for the next generation, because that's also a form of procrastination nobody's taking responsibility for. The idea that when I have children, I'm going to do things better, but the point is, at the end of the day, once the kids come, again, there's just tall order of things you need to do. It becomes very overwhelming. But if it's something that you've integrated into your family structure, it won't be entirely perfect. But if it's something that you've done with your parents and you've navigated it with them in some way or form, it becomes something that easily flows in your conversations with your spouses, your friends, and then it becomes one of the not so I need to have this conversation with my kids kind of moment. It's just what the family culture is. And so I guess the enjoyment is that yes, I'm all for let's do better by the next generation, but I'm also all for what about this generation? What about right now? Like if you have your parents, if you're still in contact with your parents and they are reasonable people, have these kind of conversations. Not necessarily to have solutions and build forward, but just talk. Okay, just talk. If you have siblings, just talk. Like call for family meetings. I know for some families that is dangerous. That's a dangerous thing to ask. But maybe that's where we have to build that muscle of familying. The concept of familying needs to be built as a skill, and this is the opportunity for us to do that. So in terms of really solving for how do we how do we manage this idea that we were raised with this, get your own, don't rely on this, and see it for what it is. And I'm not saying it's always the case, I'm not going to speak for your parents, but see, again, if you have conversations with them, see where that thought process came from, where that idea came from. And if it's from the fact that they didn't want you to be lazy, they just wanted you to be resilient, then you like, oh, okay, so this is where the intention is. Now the outcome is not giving what it needs to give. So how do we fix that right now so that as much as possible we can solve for shared ownership and shared transparency on what exactly we have as a family, so that nobody's out there thinking they're having to start from scratch, which was really the import of my episode. It was to say that if your family has something, what's stopping you guys from having that difficult, awkward conversation about how do we build from there, instead of saying it's for my family because they've told me these things or they've said these things, to guys, this is why our parents are were raising us in a certain way. But now that we are older and they've seen that there's obviously no need for that, they see that we are putting we are putting in the work and doing all the things. Why don't we reposition that same well intentioned idea and position it to, okay, how do we build proper shared ownership? Yesterday I watched a replay of people on a YouTube channel where the presenter was, it was more like a crash course on how to set up a reel and how to build a trust. And I'm like, oh, okay, nice information, you might want to look into it. And there is, and I remember again in a different scenario how in Ghana, I think it was a friend banker who told me that there's so many bank accounts that have lots of money in there that people do not claim because the owners have passed. But they didn't tell their family that they had these monies in these bank accounts. And so when they pass, guess who takes the money? The government. So we have this scenario where, oh, because we're not putting our affairs in order, for example, or we are not having those hard conversations which can birth these new, not new ideas, these like putting our affairs to order, in order kind of thinking, we are seeing all this generational wealth that your parents, they when they were younger thinking they were going to build a generational wealth, they do all this hard work. They have properties all over the place, they have paperwork, they have monies in bank accounts. You might be surprised. You might be surprised what some things your parents might have had, some jewelries they might even have bought, like some things like that they've even forgotten about. Even you, I'm sure the things you've done in the name of investing and things that you might even forgotten about. So how much more your parents? They've bought pieces of land and done things that they are not even aware of. But there isn't any like platform to have that conversation until like when they know they are, for example, leaving. Then they're having these conversations. But like, why does it have to be that? Can we prevent that by having those hard conversations with our parents? The other layer to this, also based on Priscilla's voice notes, is the fact that, I mean, healing from being compared to your siblings, that's a different episode all by itself. But I do got the sense of, specifically in her case, she talks about how it wasn't cordial before because there were religious splits in the family, but now things are getting better. And I wonder, again, these are only questions I have, no answers. I wonder if there's something to still unpack there. But the point is, our families ready to unpack. And that is again a different conversation for a different episode. Like, are we only trying to fix the future families we're gonna have? What, like, is all hope lost for our current families to have these conversations? Because the fact that, again, this is just a question, the fact that we now have cordial relationships with our siblings doesn't mean we have done the deep work of understanding how to really know each other, gel with each other, connect with each other better, and really come together, so that this cordiality is not based on, we don't want fight, so let's just choose peace. It's, oh, we used to fight, we now have peace, now we're really working on our family relationship, kind of thing. And having that chunk of the work done before you can talk about collaborating and working together to consolidate or all the properties. And no like and I'm not saying that, I'm not, this whole conversation about building from your parents' properties and things, I do not want it to come off like privileged kids who are who have good problems to solve. No. I'm not talking, I'm not, no. This is from even the little that your parents have, even if it's just the house you guys live in the slum, it's still something. My point is, no matter how small it is, can we start thinking of consolidating? Because that's the whole point, right? The fact that people have houses in prime areas today means that there were some parents who back then bought that old piece, that piece of land in the far, at the time, far outskirts of town, and it seemed small to them. It just so happens that now it's a prime area, but it's a small piece of property. I'm using land because it's tangible, but it's a small piece of land that has now become very valuable, and it's not supposed to, and you're not supposed to have these kind of considerations because now it's valuable per se. But it's now saying, actually, in honoring my parents, honoring the work they've done, this is something that we should do. Maybe they didn't have the education, the infrastructure, the instrument, they didn't have the awareness on how they can consolidate all their properties, all the little investments they've made, all the small savings they have. We as children, let's put it together so they know that at least we're thinking so much about their struggle, their efforts in creating a comfortable life for us as much as they could, and we want to honor them by stewarding them properly and then building from there. Now, I'm going to end soon because it's been quite a very thought provoking entire episode today. But I do have some questions I want to ask you. Again, um, are you willing to do the deep work with your family? Is your family set up in a way that even is an option? And what do you think about this idea of, yeah, thinking for your future kids is great, but is there still some small glimmer of hope to fix things with your current families? Let me know in the show notes via the Google form, in the comments, everywhere else you're comfortable sharing. And in the next episodes, we're going to unpack a bit more about this competition with family, siblings, competition among siblings, and all these comparisons that we might have grown up with, and how do we heal from that? And yes, how are you building trust with your siblings? Are you building trust with your siblings, amongst your siblings? Do you trust your siblings? Because that is foundational to all these conversations about generational wealth. Once you think about generational wealth, do not only think of it as your own single effort. It's not a single effort. Every single person's effort counts. And so it's always healthy to consider whoever is on board, whoever is willing to do that work, to join you in having those conversations and putting those things in place, to have the conversations that need to be had before these decisions are made, to really roughing all the bumps on the road over the years that hasn't been smoothened. Did I say roughing? Smoothing the bumpy roads and all the unspoken things that you've swept under the carpet, and then build from there. I think that is where generational wealth truly begins. Again, we'll have another episode unpacking more of this. But for now, thank you so much for joining me on today's episode, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.